I'm going to have to take advantage of the mortgage moratorium or whatever it is. I mean, be realistic with that. And how do you survive? How do you be a good person? And just realize you don't know where this is going to end up, but the last thing you should be doing is stealing cars or shooting somebody or whatever, easy to say. I get it because yeah, sure. I have some resources compared to most, but there are options out there in times of desperation. Hopefully that can continue, that's when things will really get messy and bad, is if any of, what little sort of social safety net does exist in America. And there's not much, because we've held on so much to this capitalist ideal, at the expense of any kind of real meaningful social safety net. That's a very taboo thing. Socialist, communist, capitalist. That's not even what I'm trying to debate here.
No, I understood.
There are places to go if people need food, need things. We're not. Hold on one second. My apologies. But that's when you start seeing that stuff spike, that kind of desperation. There's a tipping point where something like that could get very much out of control. I'm hoping it doesn't happen that way, that we can find our humanity here, and hopefully it is an opportunity for that,
And that's exactly what we're talking about here, and really urging people to think about their role in this crisis and personalize and ask the difficult questions. I mean, the truth is that in every single system, again, not politically speaking, but just in terms of, human history, when people were disenfranchised and kind of this mob mentality took over, look what happened to a huge country like Russia. The power was usurped by a few that are now torturing the rest of the population. It's just a dangerous place to be.
China also.
Yeah, China. And
there's many examples of this.
Yeah, so there's a real acute danger in that mindset when you're trying to point fingers or just feeling sorry for yourself to the point where you're willing to pick up a weapon and harm somebody else.
This is pretty much the impetus for World War II, which was, the Axis powers came to be because of really the desperation of countries like Italy, like, of course, Germany. What was happening in Russia, Japan, and it's ugly. And and it was a lot of mass desperation. It was because we especially Europe had never recovered from World War I, especially Germany, and that opened the door to politics and ideology that, of course, in hindsight, that is 2020, anybody that thought that was what was happening in Germany in the 30s was a great idea or a great experiment. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I hope most reasonable people can agree it wasn't, because look what happened. But, I'm not equating that to now, but that was massive cultural disruption. We're going through a massive cultural disruption now. And it's going to change how, the mass of people around the world start looking and thinking of things. And I was reading also, these are the kind of times that very fringy politicians start emerging,
Yes.
Beyond what we may already have. People want hope. They want a voice. They want that lightning rod of what they think is the answer, what they think is going to help them out, we'll see.
No, you're so right. And it's a very dangerous time, in a sense, but if you do the work, and we're going to give you homework here, I'm afraid, just have a conversation with yourself and find out who you truly are. What do you have to lose at this point? The world is ending as you know it anyway.
Yeah. You're going to die someday, no matter what. You hope it's when you're 96 years old with your great grandchildren at your feet. Perspective, I guess. That's the thing. And I know what you're saying. It's have that perspective. Maybe now is like that good time to do some of those things you always wanted to do. Of course, if it was, I want to go to Venice, you can't do that now. But if it's play music or, writing or just spending the quality time with family, with your children, with your grandchildren, whatever. I mean, yeah, that's where we are now, until, and then, as let's see how the next several weeks play out. But we're truly very powerless in what's going on at the moment.
That's true. And I'm going to make a case study out of you here because you're already practicing what we're preaching right now, which is what's so cool about it. I think that's what puts you in a position of not voice of authority as in, telling other people, but you live by example. You've already spent a lot of quality time with your family before this ever happened. And you happen to play music very beautifully, as I was a lucky recipient of witnessing. You're so connected to yourself, to your community. You had such an illustrious career, but you didn't define yourself by your accomplishments, whether it's, being around people that are powerful and wealthy or making money, things of that nature. So somehow you're already quite evolved, in my view, as far as conducting yourself and creating a world around you, because we're all ecosystems, we all kind of create this connections and relationships. So, we're not just in isolation, so to speak.
Yeah, you're right.
So I've seen you do that already. So to you, it's an extension. It didn't all of a sudden change, right?
No, I think even well before coronavirus, and sure, I'll be the first to admit I've been fortunate that some things have worked out well, that I've been able to have a lot of great opportunities in life and do a lot of things that were, even looking back, when I was a kid, way beyond my wildest dreams. But I think I probably I've often had that attitude about, life is of the moment. Yeah, if you have children, you have commitments and all that. Of course, you gotta have a job and you gotta take care of stuff, if you're a responsible person. But maybe my tolerance for some risk taking in life, not stupid risk taking, but when it came to like getting into the wine business, or even with working hard at a job but still wanting to do music things or whatever it is, or especially the last 5 years or so, when after leaving auctions and that stability and that notoriety, frankly,
for sure,
really
you're a big deal.
I could have really cashed in on that, but it meant more to me from a human perspective to say, holy crap, I have a chance now and see the world, do these things, explore and experience. I guess, philosophically, I kind of started viewing life as, this idea of kind of, we're, floating in a river. All right.
Yeah.
And you're better if you float with the current.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to swim against it, that current is taking you somewhere. You may not know. It may be right over a waterfall. It may be, hardcore into the rocks, into the ocean. You don't know. And you know what? Yeah. If you do decide you're going to go with the current, you know what? You might bang yourself up against the rock. You might scrape your knees or feet against the floor of the river or whatever. I'm getting very philosophical here, but this is simply...
No, I'm totally mesmerized by this. I never heard that comparison before.
Well, but swimming against it and trying to go from where you came typically that river is going to overpower you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be at best stuck where you are, or very slowly moving against the current.
Oh, so you'll spend all this energy trying to fight it, right?
Yeah. And, you know, this is just my own personal connection I made several years ago, which is that the happier I found frankly, when I started just what you'd call, you know, going with this river of life.
Yeah.
Meaning if, you know, interesting opportunities come up and not complete, you know, idiot about it, doesn't mean, oh, you know, somebody says go, you know, jump into a volcano. No, that's not it. But things like some of these career choices, let alone opportunities for, especially the last 4 or 5 years, you know, travel and seeing things and doing things and meeting people, meeting Juliana, you know, all this for me personally was having more acceptance with not fighting against that current, I guess.
Yes.
And saying yes more, realizing the world may offer you a lot of opportunities in life if you have the vision to see that.
Yes. So it ties again into who you are. You can walk into the same room and have two vastly different experiences with the same group of people because of what's inside of you.
Yeah. And also, I think it just I personally, with all this, I've always had a deep sense of the brevity of life, or what have you, that, you know what, if you have an opportunity to do things that you really feel compelled and want to do in life, you know, you can't waste time. You may not have that time. And happiness really comes from, if we have those chances and those opportunities in life to, you know, fulfill that and nurture that desire, that hunger and thirst for experience. Some people don't, you know, I don't know. This is just what my own personal journey, if you will.
Yeah, of course. But that's so cool because you lived, that's exactly right. A lot of people say life is short. How many times?
Life is short, you know, life is short.
How many of us lived to that credo, to that standard? How many of us actually live every day as if next one is not going to come?
I don't know. And the other side of me is thinking maybe it is some form of my own mental illness. I don't know, but I'd like to say
I like your disease. That one I want.
You know, well,
if it is,
you know, the thing is, I can sit here now in these, you know, we're teetering on apocalyptic times. You know, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not saying that religiously at all, but you know, shit, I'm glad that I've been to Venice, you know, I've seen Pompeii, I've gone to the Alhambra in Spain, I've traveled Asia, I've been, you know, I've done things, I've loved, I've lost, I've done music, I've recorded, you know, I guess now that I'm forced here to stay at home, and I'm happy to, we have with, you know, my family here and the kids, Sarah, Sean, and everything. This is the strangest thing is, like, this is the first time I normally am used to just being out there. Like once a month I'm traveling somewhere for whatever reason. And I don't think I've really been anywhere outside of Greenwich, Connecticut, except for maybe New York City. That's really no different. But I mean, for like 3 or 4 months, you know? Yeah. But strangely, you know, as I feel my own sense of resolve, I guess, my sense of perspective, which is, I'm glad I've done things I always wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows where this is going? I'm glad it's not too late, you know? It doesn't mean there won't be those chances for all of us, but this is a different thing, you know? Yeah, you can't just go get on a plane and go walk around Paris on a rainy day and see, you know, the Eiffel Tower and all this stuff. You can't really do that right now, you know?
No, and it's interesting, whenever like any kind of crisis hit, not necessarily this magnitude, but you get sick and all of a sudden, oops, you know, what do you think about? What do you lament? You don't lament that you didn't work more. or, you know, taken out the garbage,
Yeah.
or, you know, painted the ceiling. You lament, you know, why didn't I do what I wanted to do?
Well, you know, and I know, you know, sort of listening to myself speak a little bit, it sounds a little like, oh, here's Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, what's going on?
You know, it sounds a little, I mean, it sounds very self-indulgent. Maybe it is. I don't know, but I think I'm a better person, and a better person to the people in my life for different reasons that, I don't know. You know, conversation for another time, but I was shaped in my childhood with seeing people who didn't do this, and how miserable they were, and how miserable they could make everybody else's life.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll unwind that at a later date.
We definitely need to talk about it, because that's such a common pain point, you know?
I'll tell you, if nothing else, the reason I think I felt that way, it was completely by watching examples of those who
yeah, it's very powerful.
Those who didn't, and how it, you know, created their neuroses, created their unhappiness, created their misery, and how they projected that onto others around them. I never wanted to be that person, you know.
You know, I've read somewhere that, for example, there's an alcoholism disease in the family, you know, and somebody's observing it. They either emulate it or they go the exact opposite direction. Yeah. And I suppose it's probably true for a lot of family dynamics. When you see something, such a prominent example, then you have a choice. Again, here we are. Once you're an adult, you have choices. And you chose to really acknowledge yourself and to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
That has to be that internal dialogue, because you do feel obligated otherwise to replicate whatever it is that you think is the right path for you. But you actually had that internal alignment when you said, I'm going to go this way.
Yeah, I think so. It's exactly why I left Indiana and it was because of opportunity. You know, I ended up in New York, wine world, wine auctions, you know, globetrotting, stuff like that. Just kind of a don't say no attitude, because holy crap, holy cow, if you're so lucky to have opportunities unfold in front of you, that,
it's amazing. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just amazing to me, because you are that international rock star. You lived such an amazing life that was filled with beautiful wines and amazing food and very stimulating, high voltage events and personalities. I mean, it's a heady experience. I got to experience you in your home, and like this sanctuary that you created. That's a perfect word for it, actually. Yeah. It just felt so safe.
Yeah.
I didn't get a whiff of, oh my God, this person, takes himself seriously, or he was a big deal. I mean, it's amazing to me how both coexist.
It is kind of like, maybe, and it's natural. I never thought of it that way, but that's what's really, you create your own safe place, I guess. Maybe that's what you and James saw. But you guys finally got out here to visit. Very welcoming, very safe, very comfortable. Very inviting. And I think when you have your own, we're lucky, of course, to have nice space and nice area. That's what I'm about. That's what we're about. You got to know Juliana. You got to know the kids, Sarah, Sean, everybody. We all share that kind of ethos, and that makes sense. You want people, if you're bringing somebody, it is like our little planet.
It is.
Leave the planet sometimes and things are different, but if somebody's visiting our planet, want them to feel welcome and help them hope they understand what you offer, what kind of people you are. Be welcome, be safe, all this stuff. But you guys got to see that.
it was amazing. I can tell you it was inspirational because when you see live example of what can be this final dynamic, the blended family, it's like, yes, all of us wax poetic about it one point or the other, or read somebody else's representations. But you don't really see right in front of you. It's like, my God, not only it works, but there's so much love. This is a house built on love. And you have to be blind not to see it. And then it kind of changes you a little bit. So, I mean, I walked away from this experience feeling a lot of attachments to you guys, even though, you know, the time was limited, but I felt like I've known you for 100 years just because you exude goodwill. And that is such a powerful foundation. That is something no one can take away. No disease, no calamity, no nothing. Because again, it lives within.
Yeah, sure.
And so there's another challenge for you guys that are watching. I mean, imagine what your home you would want to be like. Whatever it is, it can be apartment by yourself, it can be friends, family, whatever. I don't think it's geography or environment that we're talking about. We're talking about in your ideal mind's eye, perfect scenario, what would it look like? What art would you have on the wall? Who would you talk to? Like, give yourself the gift of living the way you want to. I mean, you managed to create such a powerful network, and by powerful I mean people are truly there for you, but you're also there for them. Yeah,
definitely. That's extremely key what you just said, which is always has to be a two-way road. And you know, we're getting into, I think when you were here, I was talking a little bit about I'm a student of Buddhism, right? Mm-hmm. And Buddhism's much more psychology, spirituality, self-help, not really even a religion. You know, it's non-theistic and all this stuff. But you can, and it's one of these things you can take from it what you feel is good for you or not.
Yeah.
But man, I guess it was, I don't know, 5 or so years ago, I started studying it, and it just so much clicked. It was already very natural, but it's about kindness, compassion, empathy. It's about acceptance. Mm-hmm. And the ultimate thing, the ultimate underlying, the start of Buddhism, the start of why Gautama Siddhartha, you know, left his princely, lavish life and became an ascetic and became the Buddha was, you know, this idea of underlying, you know, the human condition is an enormous amount of suffering.
Yes.
And in the Buddhist words, it's called dukkha, meaning like we're all, you know, if you're trying to hone in on what are those, get inside yourself and understand what it is that's causing your suffering and your pain.
Yeah. And
that sounds very simple. And it's easy for people to say, well, shit, I can't pay my mortgage this month. That's pain. Well, okay. Mm-hmm. The more you study, the more you get deeper than that.
Right.
And the idea is you get to a point where that doesn't cause you pain anymore. Doesn't mean it's not a problem. It doesn't mean it's not something you have to be responsible for, but you find ways to deal with how that causes your own pain and suffering. That's very Buddhist, you know, but it isn't when it comes to relationships. It's a two-way road. You know, you have to extend that kind of gratitude, that kind of compassion. If you put that out there, even if you don't get it back, then that's not creating more problems for yourself. You know, if you're not worried about how somebody's treating you or what they think about you, you decide how to deal with it, engaging in that. And believe me, after being on like this TV show and all of the nasty stuff that happens, because, you know, for some people that it's a funny thing to make fun of people on TV. But you know, this was a good learning experience. And
yeah.
Well, you know, but you know, that acceptance and detachment was extremely, like, it was almost like a healing process of realizing, you know, you don't have to let people get to you that if you're not on the same sort of wavelength they're playing or whatever, and it's okay to let it go. You know, you don't have to engage with it. That's only going to make it worse. Well, so yeah, you know, philosophically, you know, just it's just better to have love and compassion. I mean, it sounds so heady and hoity-toity, and in these crazy times, it sounds, you know, some people I think would be very dismissive when they hear talk like that, but you know, we've lost that. Especially here in America, it's something that a couple generations ago went out the window, you know.
Agreed. I mean, we relate to our personal handheld devices more than we relate to each other. And
you got it. And
that's the road to nowhere.
It's, you know, again, this is you know, some of the shortcomings of going back to the consumer-driven capitalistic economy we live in. You know, the shortcomings can be what we're seeing now, which is, you know, not much of a safety net when there are real times of need, not prepared for the kind of disaster we're going through now. And then also human decency gets a bit lost, forgotten about. So it's quite a test. This is quite a test.
I think it's so interesting, you know, especially coming from you, because it almost feels like you've lived several lives. And I don't mean in the clandestine way. I just mean like you had the life of this wine auction executive, and you had a family life. And I mean, you've experienced such, again, intensity. And for those people that were kind of on the way striving towards that pinnacle, that promotion, that, you know, X number of dollars in their bank account, that relationship, it's always like looking into the future and if only I was there. So you're not living in the present. You're not really enjoying life. That happiness eludes you because you keep looking for this to happen to you via means of something else. And here you are saying, I've had enormous highs, but it didn't shape you. And I feel like that makes you better prepared for the lows.
Yeah.
I mean, you're so well adjusted, if you will, considering that you have a family that depends on you and looks to you for guidance, and you have young children. You know, it's just amazing to me how, you know, you're very connected and you're very empathetic in the truest sense of the word. You know, you're very generous. But at the same time, you have this inner peace that kind of flows through you as you speak. And I think that comes from, you know, you mentioned Buddhism, but again, you can take anything and not process it properly, and then it just becomes ornamental. I feel like it really permeated who you are in spirit. And it's really cool to see, and it's so necessary right now, you know, for people even like myself that are looking for answers, because that's human. We all want things to make sense, but they don't. And the only thing you have left is what you're able to kind of squirrel away in your own mind and heart. And because you've practiced it all these years, you were charitable not because it was fashionable. You were giving of, you know, yourself and, you know, your wealth because you felt compelled internally to do that.
Yeah, sure. It felt like the right thing to do, I guess. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. And now you're doing it in a different way. Like in this conversation, I think you're giving people an opportunity to hit that pause button, not just because they have to, but because there's an incentive. There's something on the other side of that. Those emotional riches, right? That helps you get through this.
I hope you're right. I mean, look, I'm not, I mean, the only thing I suppose would be meaningful to me from anybody, you know, listening to what we're talking about, and don't expect, not trying to convert people to something or other, not looking for, you know, friends or looking for agreement. I don't know. Some people will, clearly there's many people out there that would be listening to all this and just throw it all away and say it's not for them. It's malarkey. I don't know. That's okay. But if we're having a wonderful conversation about very important and meaningful topics at the moment. And as two people, I think that maybe have a little bit of a different point of view and perspective on what is happening right this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also acutely aware of this world of uncertainty and this world of chaos that is suddenly bestowed upon us, but also as people who are very humanist, I guess, if helping anybody to feel less desperate, less hopeless about what's happening now.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's, it's not about asking for anybody to agree with anything we're talking about, but man, if you can do anything to help somebody not feel that craziness that we're experiencing now, because it's only going to get worse.
I interviewed Chef Robert Irvine, 6-7 years ago. It's been a while. And I remember him saying, it was quoted in the article I wrote at the time, if you lead with love and compassion, anything is possible.
There you go.
It's just as true today. It was true before that. It will always be true. And that's exactly what you were saying, is that lead with that and see what happens.
And there you go. And then it's up to the other person and you've done what you can do.
Yeah. And, you guys were really, this is the dialogue between us, but really you're our partner in this. Those of you that didn't get value out of it, I'm sorry, but I hope that you find your own answers, and more than anything, I hope you seek them. I hope that you actually ask the questions. So if we did nothing but that, that's an accomplishment in and out of itself. And those of you that have thoughts and musings and you want to continue the dialogue, we truly invite you to come along with us and ask us questions and give us feedback about this discussion. This is very much, a partnership with our viewer.
Yeah, sure. And anybody that's interested in whether, this is just you and I chatting.
Yeah.
We're not asking people to agree, not agree, or argue or not argue. I don't know. It's purely, it's for people to digest and interpret and listen to the way they, anybody wants to. And that's cool.
No, I find this kind of therapeutic in the best sense of the word, not like a therapy session, but just connecting with a fellow human that's looking in the same direction as you. And, like I said earlier, we have some similar passions, wine and other things, but I think the most important piece of it is that when I look in your eyes, I see the kindness, I see that compassion, I see the humanity, and it just makes me feel better. It makes me feel that there's another human being across the country that I can relate to, and it fills that void, because we all get lonely.
And then somehow, by virtue of that, we've added to the sum total positivity in the world.
That's exactly right.
If you can do that, that means more than having another $100 in your bank account or something, I think. But anyway. Topics for future conversations.
Absolutely. And like I said, everything you say, you backed up with your life experience. So there's proof of concept, and that makes the validity of it that much greater. It's been really cool talking to you,
Very
Michael.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you, hear your voice. Glad you're healthy and safe, and I'm glad we got this up and running. And so we'll do it again next week.
That's right. Tune in next week. More to come.
Cool.